Like, I literally just showed you've been doing the right things and you've gotten to your goal-ish. Like, we're getting close.
I think seeing those numbers makes it less scary probably for him too, because he still reels and has all this, thoughts, and seeing it laid out with those scenarios is helpful.
I did some of so I read through your whole book, and when you talked about like the Monte Carlo simulations, and I went and played around with all of that, and I agree with everything that you're saying. And for me, it's exciting to see like the actual numbers.
And to know that we're making more than staying here and we're a job.
Welcome to the Childfree Wealth Podcast, hosted by Bree and Dr. J, Certified Financial Planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast.
All right. When I last left you, I had given you a bunch of things to think about and then a huge form to fill out. Did that take you forever to collect all the information?
I'm pretty organized, so I think I got it together pretty quickly. Yeah, not too bad.
You had pretty detailed notes, so I figured you had to if we had asked you to do the form, it would have been a different answer. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I was filling it out. I was the one filling it out, but then he was the one that had to go back and get the actual bank statements and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had Libby unlock it, or I had you guys unlock it, and I added more detail to it. Yeah.
Let me correct what Libby put in there. No, I'm joking. No worries. I'm going to walk you through that. We actually did what we call our checkup, and we'll take you through top to bottom. Most of it's in pretty good shape. Anything else you want to make sure specifically make sure we talk about today?
No, nothing specific today. I don't think so. Anything? No.
All right, we're going to get a bit nerdy on some numbers. I apologize in advance, Libby, because I'm sure Andy and I are going to go down a rabbit hole. Just saying, at some point, whether it's taxes or investing, I'm just going to tell you. Libby, on my notes, one of the things I saw in the file was got to figure out a plan for your parents. So my plan is for that to be next time we get together, we'll dig in a bit on that because I have a feeling that's going to take more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to walk you through stuff. And by the way, you may not be able to see it perfect, but you're going to get a copy of it. So I'm assuming you can see now.
Yep.
This is our checkup. I'm going to do a bunch of different fun stuff with this. So you're going to get this whole thing, and Andy can grade me later on how I did on it. Yeah. We'll see where that fits. Couple things. We're just kind of look at your overall goals. We had that down. Nothing new that I was surprised by. We're going to have this discussion about file versus fire that we started before, kind of like this debate of if we're working or not. But the ultimate goal is, hey, I need $65K a year, which I don't know which one came first. If that's the 5,500 you started with or the magic, but about that to retire and move to the DR and make that your home base. Is that kind of where we're at?
Yeah, I think. I can't remember what the document that we put together, but we had said living in the Dominican Republic 4 months a year and then traveling the remainder of the months. And I think it averaged out to about that. Yep.
That was this. So that was my question is the 65K is essentially this numbers added all up.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. That'll make sense in a bit. And we'll make sure we check through the system and work through that. And we're kind of you're on the right track. So now we got to get you to get there. The things we were talking about, this amazing life versus simple finances. We're trying to make sure we're working through, the move, the travel, all that fun stuff. I don't have to check any of it because you know where it is. Love that you guys have no debt. Love that you're paying off the condo. On the insurance, we're going to come back. Libby, I didn't see a long-term disability policy for you. Do you have one?
Long-term disability? No.
So one of the things to think about is, are you part of travel agent association or something?
I am. And I think there are maybe some options through some of those things. Yeah.
So I want you to take a look at it. It's usually pretty cheap as a group policy. And then what'll happen is, let's say your cold gets worse and you've out for 6 months, you've got something to cover your income. But it'll be remarkably cheap. It'll cover either 60 or 70% of your income. You can file through there. Shouldn't be a big deal. If they don't have it, we can find another one. So we'll go there. Keep in mind on that, you want to pay for that out of pocket, not out of the business. So if you pay for the long-term disability out of pocket, it does not get taxed if you ever claim on it from an income tax.
Okay.
Big difference. You never want to be writing off that long-term disability as a business expense. By the way, Andy, that's one of those trick questions for taxes. It's not worth writing it off. Estate plan. I saw you had some documents, but I didn't. Are they signed, or was that just the copies you uploaded?
That was just our copies, but we do have the hard copies signed.
That's what matters. And then we'll come back to the plan for parents. Now I had to count things a little differently because we got the condo counted elsewhere. Well, that we'll go over your assets in another screen. That'll make good sense. And what I did was I built out essentially two models. One is now and one is in the future. I'll show you that in a minute. We'll get there. On the taxes, so I'm going to send you this tax report. What's the $147,000 long-term loss? Is that an ongoing thing? What's going on?
No, it's a one-time thing. I was working for a consulting company. I was going through the process of becoming owner of that company, and things basically fell apart. Essentially, I left there and through a whole bunch of different stuff that ended up with that scenario.
Okay.
But you pretty much gave back your shares instead of selling them.
Yep.
And so then tax-wise, we got a loss.
Okay. What was your plan to do? What were you planning to do with that loss going forward? Are we going to take $3,000 for the rest of our life, or what?
That's kind of what I'd like to talk to you probably about. I don't know. Right now, that's what it is, $3,000 for the next 50 years. But whether or not I start doing something else, I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that. So I wanted to figure that out. The other thing to keep in mind on that $3,000 going forward, there's no guarantee that's going to stay that way forever. Tax laws change every minute. I mean, It's not even every year. You got $140,000 to carry forward loss. That's a long time. So we'll come back to that. While we're here in the taxes, I don't have to explain the tax brackets to you. One of the things to look at is kind of where you are in, any of the Roth and the traditional. One of the ones we'll get back to when Andy quits his job, which I'm hoping to make sooner rather than later. I want to come back to a discussion of should Libby be putting in as a Roth 401k solo instead of traditional. Have you thought about that at all?
I mean, we contribute to a Roth IRA every year. Mm-hmm. We haven't done the Roth 401k. I know I did that early on in when we were starting stuff. I had Roth 401k through work, and then as my income increased, I sort of went the traditional route. And so, yeah, but I'm open to discussion on what's the better solution.
Yeah, so part of the debate here is if you're arguing that you should do a Roth IRA, the argument would be the same that you should do a Roth 401k. Because if you're saying, hey, I think my tax is going to be higher in the future, that's part of that argument. Also, it's a question of how do you get access to the money. So if you're putting it in Roth 401k on the solo side, then the contributions you can get at earlier. So some tricks. I'll come back to that in a little bit. And this is just an overview of your taxes written in English. That's what we're doing there. The other one I saw, so you got 3 LLCs. Have you done the FinCEN beneficial ownership form for those?
Yeah. Yep.
All 3?
Did you do one for yours yet or no?
Do what?
The BOI reporting?
No.
We'll do it. I did that for my tax business, and then we'll be doing that for Libby's and the other one as well.
This is why I'm pointing it out. It's got stupid high fees if you don't do it, but it takes you 5 minutes to do. And then what's going on with this partnership? Is there something else going on here?
That's closing up this year. That was another business that Libby had kind of started up. It didn't really pan out, so we'll close it out this year. It's not in operation anymore.
Okay, keep in mind you still have to do the FinCEN form on that one too.
Okay.
Because it's a business that exists. Down here, there's a whole bunch of things, ideas on your taxes. You can flip through them. Most of it, you're going to be in the right way. The Hawaii, one of the interesting things is when you guys move to the DR, that essentially becomes your state. So we may want to think about what is the impact of Hawaii state taxes versus DR, and are there any moves in between? Don't have a perfect answer on that right this second, but I want you to think that through.
Okay.
So that goes the tax high level. I'm going to come back to your investments in a second because I want to have a little discussion there, but overall in a good shape. One of the kind of things on your investments is, so we got the VTSAX and chill routine going on. Is that fair?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay. One of the problems, and this is kind of like a debate, and Colin, I'm assuming you got that from the Simple Path to Wealth or the financial independence stuff?
Yeah, from various people, and it's just been a simple, easy solution for me. Like that's kind of the route I've gone.
One of the issues on that, if we look at your allocation, is we've got essentially nothing international. Okay. Collins, and this is where I will argue with him a little bit, and that's my job to argue. He goes, okay, VTSAX and chill works because U.S. companies have exposure internationally, which is true. But that does not mean you have investments internationally. In general, kind of the way I look at it is your goal should be about 20% of your assets, being stocks, are international because that offsets any craziness in the U.S.
Okay.
And I'm intentionally being vague about that because I don't care if you're on the red team or the blue team. We can still look at this year and go, there's going to be some craziness. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So right now you have essentially zero exposure internationally. Is that intentional or is that just kind of like been cool, set it and forget
it? It's been set it and forget it kind of thing. I'm trying to keep from touching things and keep my hands off of stuff. Yeah.
Are you one of those tinkerers?
No, I probably would be, but I've gotten myself into the mindset of don't tinker with things. Just you're invested for the long term. Don't touch anything. And so that's just, I'm just shoving money over there and not touching anything.
Okay. And right now you got about 20% of your money in cash, but that's really going towards the condo, right? Well, 109 of it.
A big chunk of that. Yeah. Like over $100,000 is going towards the condo that's sitting in there. Yeah.
So the result is once you pay that off, you're going to be like 90% in stock. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think so for now. Yeah.
Well, let me do some tests on this. So something weird happens this week. Somebody tweets something stupid. Market goes down 10% tomorrow. What do?
I do nothing. I'm of the mentality of not touching anything, and we just continue pushing money in there. That's
same for you, Libby.
I trust him with the stuff. What you guys are talking about, I'm like, huh?
Well, so keep in mind, this is your money too, okay? Like
I try to learn as much as I can, but sometimes it goes over my head.
That's fair. So, and we're not planning on using this money anytime soon, so that's fine. You know, you two, to me, yeah, I'm good with if it's 100% in stock, but I'd want about 20% of your stock to be in international, just as an offset. So the problem is international stock recently, past decade or so, has been a bit of a dog, but that's the whole point. Like, you know, the U.S. is up, like is the offset for the U.S. What do you think about that, Andy, in general?
I'm not objective to it at all. No. I mean, I think that's fine. I don't know. Is there certain like index funds or I mean, I don't know where I would go to look at that kind of stuff.
Yep. I'm going to get you that 1 second. Okay. So before I do that, one other question for you is, do you want your investments to match your values? So this is the question of, do you want to invest in essentially ESGs, kind of things that are, you know, we're not doing the coal and the oil and the stuff like that, or does that not matter to you?
It doesn't matter that much to me. I've worked in a coal mine and I've worked on oil rigs. So
all right. So we're good. For the international, I'll send you this. VXUS is the ETF for that. This invests in the whole world minus the US. So this is the easy set it and forget it for that.
Okay.
What's going to happen is you're going to want, and we'll go back here. So your brokerage has about 300 grand in it. And these numbers will be a little off, but just close enough. You're going to want about 20% of your total investments to be in international, and we're going to want it to be in your brokerage. The reason we want it in your brokerage is because the taxes you pay internationally, you get a credit on your taxes. If you put it in your IRA or your 401k, that money just disappears. We put the international in the brokerage. So really what that's saying is about 200 grand-ish we should move over towards international. Well, we've got about 65,000 in gain in here. So if you go to rebalance this and we sell out of VTSAX, you will have some gain. Well, that uses up some of that $140,000 loss.
Right.
Okay. It's actually called tax gain harvesting. People often miss that step, but you can actually harvest the gains and pay the taxes now.
Yeah.
People often think about tax loss harvesting, but tax gain harvesting. So what you could do is sell about 200 grand of your VTSAX, put it in VXUS. You'll end up about 20% in the international. Then you can go back to set it and forget it.
Okay.
How does that feel?
It makes me a little bit nervous. I don't know why.
Talk to me. Well, that's the whole point.
Our dollar's really strong right now. So would right now be a good time to put our money in international? Because maybe eventually, I'm just thinking Japan and Australia, their dollar used to be equal with us. And if that happens again, then that's could grow, right?
This is where I started with Andy's kind of philosophy. So the philosophy was we just put money in whenever we got it, we take it out when we need it. We're not timing the market. So if we're trying to time currencies, by the way, I'm not going to even take a shot at trying to time currencies. But the answer is, hey, long term, where we put 20% in the international, set it and forget it. My general rule, and this is kind of silly, but go with me, is the day after you buy it, it's going to go down. It just is. That's my luck. Yeah. There's no way to guarantee that. So Libby, let's follow your thought. If we said, okay, the dollar and all that, so then when would you put the money in internationally?
Well, I think right now is a good time because the U.S. dollar is so strong and a lot of the other international dollars are weak.
Yeah, and it's okay. We could follow any currency theory you want. Unfortunately, you could back up any of them. When you feel comfortable is when to move it in. But Andy just gave me the reaction yeah, that's a little crazy.
No, so when you say, okay, 20% of your assets should be in international, I think, okay, that seems realistic. But then when you tell me to sell $200,000 of my $300,000 brokerage, even though I know it's part of the whole bigger picture, that just invokes a reaction in me. And I have to kind of step back and think, okay, no, that's 20% of your total investments. Don't get caught up on it's $200 out of $300,000 in your brokerage account.
Yeah.
We could do 20% across everything, but you're saying do 20% in the brokerage because of the tax credit benefits. That's why you do it that way.
Yep. By the way, we're not talking it's going to be a huge difference tax-wise, but if I could save any IRS money, I save it.
Yeah.
If you put it in your IRA, you just lose it. It's just poof. That's the difference. Would you feel better about it, Andy, if it was split across all the accounts?
No, not necessarily. Yeah, I'm just giving my honest reaction when you say it out loud. But then again, even with the set it and forget it thing, I have to step back and try not to look at it emotionally and try not to look at it personally. Try to see it from the outside, like you're seeing it. And that's the problem.
Oh yeah, I'm unemotional. These are just numbers to me.
Exactly. Yeah, and I could probably give the same information to somebody else, but I can't take my own advice because those are my dollars, not somebody else's. And so But
it might save us in the future if the U.S. dollar tanks and now all of a sudden, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
It's so Vanguard's done a bunch of research on this. You get much more than 20% in international, it doesn't help you. You get less, you don't get the diversification. So 20% is kind of the sweet spot, but if you said 15% or 23%, who cares? It doesn't make a big difference. But right now we have zero. That's the difference. And by the way, if we look at this a year from now and it's gotten off and it's 18% international, you don't have to worry about rebalancing it every minute. It's just directionally it's right. And when you put more money in, you can look at it and say, okay, do I need more international or do I need more US? And I can just put the money in as appropriate. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now, now I said it makes sense, can you wrap your head around it? Because that's not always the same thing.
I think I can. Yeah, and it also gives me a chance to use up some of those carry forwards.
I would consider, and I want you to kind of think about this. If you sold all the VTSAX, you would essentially have $60,000 of gain that we can harvest now and use up 140, use that up out of the 140.
Oh, did we?
Like if we're going to go $3,000, I mean, you'd be taking $3,000 for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
All right. That's not going to be a great answer.
No, I was hoping that there would be a solution in the interim. So, yeah.
The answer is you sell your VTSAX. You can buy it back the next day. This is one of those that mess with people's heads. People get caught on the wash sale rule. Well, that's if you have a loss. Yeah, if you have a gain and then you buy back, you're fine. So it just reset your cost basis.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, and that would, I guess, I'd just have to see what the tax consequences are. You had said there's $60,000 in. So
right now we have, I'm just going to go back. So we got $140,000 carry forward loss, 144. So we're good, and you're in the 15% capital gains rate. All right. So you got $65,000 of gain. So that it would just take 65 from that 144. You pay no tax on it. Now you got $80,000 of carry forward loss going forward.
Yeah, I think that's would probably be a good idea for this year.
Yeah. I don't see any big moves otherwise that are going to use that up. This is where people start doing silly things. I'm putting silly kind of in quotes of well, I have this loss, so I should. And I'm like, no, don't start making silly financial decisions just to use up some tax loss. We already have gain here, so might as well do that.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm on board with that.
Now, when you buy back in, I want you to buy VTI instead of VTSAX.
Okay.
It's the ETF version. You got it. The VTI is exactly the same, essentially. But it's the ETF. The expense ratio is 0.03 instead of 0.04, which, by the way, not a huge savings, but it does save you money. Other thing is, in general, one of the things you don't want to do is this mutual fund is in your brokerage account. So with mutual funds, they tend to move things around a little bit more. Vanguard had an issue last year with their target date funds. They were moving things around and people got a whole bunch of tax bills. ETFs don't get rebalanced the same way as mutual funds. Does it make sense about keeping the ETF instead of the mutual fund in your brokerage account?
Yeah, no, that 100% makes sense. I think I just went down the VTSAX thing early on and just kept going down that path.
Yeah, and by the way, it works. I don't have I'm over here optimizing down to 1 basis point. But just the little things.
Yeah.
Now, while we're there, so we got VTSAX hanging over here or in the IRAs. Fun little trick. Vanguard is the only company that can do this right now. You can actually call up Vanguard and they will convert the VTSAX that's in your IRAs to VTI. No tax implications, just lowers your fees.
Okay. And you have to do that by phone call.
There might be somewhere on the website now, but I love Vanguard, but their website is ancient. So,
and they've actually been really called Vanguard in the past. They've a real person picks up.
It's probably going to be easiest just to call them. They might have to send you a form, but literally just by switching those two funds, you save technically 25% on the funds, and you've got that in, I think, both of your IRAs, all of your IRAs.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Do you have anything besides VTSAX hanging around? The Fidelity 401k, you probably don't have other choice. Are these the only choices you got?
Yeah. That was, I kind of tried to, those are the choices that I have. And I kind of tried to build out a little bit of a VTSAX sort of thing.
I'm going to show you something and then you're going to get mad, but that's okay. So the small cap that you got there, you're paying a whole lot of expense ratio. I'm not loving that. So my recommendation on this is just to put it all in the FXAIX, which is the Fidelity 500, which last time I looked at, their fees are really low. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Hold on. It's 0.015. And that's just an S&P 500. It's technically not the whole market the way VTSAX is, but I'm not willing to pay 0.8 fees, just shy of 1%, just for these extra funds.
Okay. No, that's an easy fix.
Yeah. I mean, not a big deal. All you got to do is just change your 401k allocation to there.
That's all through my work.
Oh.
Yeah.
Libby, your solo 401k is going to be moving from Vanguard to Assuron, if I got that right. They're changing companies. We'll come back to that. Does your solo 401k have a Roth option currently?
Yeah, it does. Libby's does through Vanguard.
All right. We're not going to touch it until they finish the moves. I think it's like in a month or so because I don't want to mess anything up, but we'll make sure we get that. So I'm just double checking the rest of it. Yeah, they're all VTSAX. So yeah, for all of your IRAs, you're just going to call and say, move me into the ETF, done. And then we'll do the international here. How's that feel? Is it simple enough for you?
Yeah, those are simple changes to optimize things and kind of more diversify ourselves. And I think it's good. Yeah.
Now, a year from now, you're going to come back to me and you're going to be like, well, my international didn't do as well as the US or vice versa. And literally my job is if I've diversified you right, I always have to apologize for something. Like, yep, you're right. The international didn't do as well. Or that's actually what you want. You want something to offset the other. And, just be aware of that. Because one year is going to be up or down and you're going to be like, oh, why did I go into it? That is intentional as that offset. So, don't worry about that. All right. This overall system. This is Right Capital. This is the financial planning software. And I'm going to prove, I'm now going to do a magic trick. I'm going to prove that you can retire whenever you want. So let's walk through that. Before we get there, I had to make up a number. So do you two think you're going to do the part-time work forever or to a certain age? What were you thinking there?
I don't know. You want to answer that question?
I don't know. My initial goal was once we hit that number where we were sustaining what we needed, I didn't want to work anymore. So I don't want to keep doing it forever.
Okay. When would be ideal for you?
I don't know. I mean, originally we had this whole 5 to 7 year plan. We're going to hit the number we need, and then I'm going to be done with travel after that. Unless some really big bookings come in and I want to take them, but I don't want to have to be seeking it out and trying to keep booking things.
And then we had the debate of can we do it earlier or do we grind it out? Did you guys have any kind of debate on that, or where'd you end up?
Yeah, we talked about it and tried to sort of more look at what our true goal was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of our goal was to have our investments sort of support our base lifestyle, right? And then to have these part-time, as we want to do optional type side work that can either give us more luxury or can, be more of the wants than the actual needs that we need to have.
But even the base lifestyle included travel.
Yeah, the base lifestyle included travel
stuff.
So, yeah.
I've got $18,000 a year of travel in here. And by the way, it's adjusted for inflation, so it goes up over time. Andy, going back to the big question we were getting to, which is, are you going to keep working or are we going to move to the DR next year?
I don't know.
I got to ask the hard questions.
Show us the numbers.
You're like the car salesman right now.
Yeah.
If you sell us on it.
Because we did the numbers and we feel like we're not ready yet, but we're also not taking into account the whole die with zero thing.
Yeah.
So let me do this. I'm going to keep these retirement ages here for just a minute, just saying you're going to do some side business for a while, and I'll come back to that. Because what I've got Libby's doing about 50 grand a year in her side income. Andy's currently 6 to 8, but I put 8 just to give me a number. And then I've got Andy quitting his job next year in here right now. what I also did, by the way, is I put your money in as Roth, and you'll see why in a minute. It'll make sense. For the expenses, it's going to look a little weird. I have, it counts the travel separate from the housing expenses and the other expenses. So I'll show you in a minute. It all adds up to the same thing. They're just accounted for and different. So what we end up with, I'm just going to use 2025 as an example. So you had said, hey, I wanted about 63 and a half, 65. So that's expenses plus goals. So this is your expenses include your living expense, your housing, other expense in here. It includes, like we had, that's how I added in when you did a move. When you retire, I add in health insurance. We'll come to that. But you end up putting aside about 65,000-ish for expenses. I've also got right now still in here the solo 401k and the Roth IRAs, but we can take those back out. Essentially what happens is if Andy quits his job next year or the end of this year, next year from the side businesses, you do it about 60 grand coming in. We'd have to cover about 50 grand else, but that's because we have the savings. And I'm going to show you that. Gotta love the Sankey diagrams. In actuality, if you don't save any money, you probably have enough money off your self-employment to pay for your expenses and your goals. What do you think about just not saving then and just living off your self-employment?
That would be like Libby's.
Well, it's the two of you together, because you had said yours is going to go to 10 or 15. You know, hers is 50.
But so does this now, I guess our issue was if we were to go this route and we're just living off the self-employment income, is this something that needs to be done indefinitely until, like, for what period of time do we have to continue to, do her travel agency, do the tax thing? Where's the end date for that kind of thing?
Yep. That's what we're going to figure out. We're going to do a couple experiments to get there. But I just want to go with the assumptions that are in there. A couple other things just to show you where you're at. So it's saying in 2025, you have about 1.2 million. What's happening is it's got your cash in there. We took out the money for the other house, and that'll add up. But what you're going to see is based on the way you have it invested right now, and this doesn't have the international in there, you're looking at something like about $120,000 is your portfolio return on average. How does that feel, Andy?
That's exciting. Like, it really, I mean...
Can you explain this in Libby terms? Because I don't get it.
It just means...
I got you. So once we have... This is actually what the future target. I'm trying to get you to like something like this. On average, the market returns about 9.4% every year. Mm-hmm. When we've got 1.2 million in investments, because that's kind of what it all adds up to, that 9.4% equals just shy of $120,000 a year. Now, here's the thing. Next year might be 70,000. It might be zero. It might be negative. It might be 200,000. We don't know which year is which. This is just an average. You two, at this point, if you're doing the side business, are at what we call the tipping point. You're making more off of your investments than you are off of your day-to-day job.
Okay.
That's why I said it's exciting. Like,
yeah.
At no point in my life.
Why are we doing this then? Why are we still here?
Well, this is where I'm going. Okay, like we're gonna then tune back on how, when do you actually quit work. So right now I have this set up as you two are retiring at 54, 57, just random number. I just picked numbers. And if we do that current plan, if we just kind of do a straight line, do the math out, you two die with about $250 million.
That's terrible. We need to spend that.
This is the whole point.
Yeah.
I have a question, because I know like the 65,000 was kind of like a minimum kind of thing. Like you and I, Andy, had talked about like more of that 80,000 would make us like feel better. Just because then we don't want to be at the point where we're like, oh no, like, because right now we live we're living a decent life where like if something pops up, like literally yesterday something popped up and I said, oh my gosh, this opportunity to Iceland just happened, let's go. I want to be able to do that in retirement still too. And so we talked about, would that like maybe pushing it more to 80 a year give us that in kind of that travel?
Yep. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make your travel goal 30,000 instead.
Okay.
which gets you essentially what you're talking about. But like,
yeah.
And by the way, when I call it like vacation goal, like I actually prefer like kind of like I call it this way, travel/fun, like just kind of like whatever we come up with this week.
Yeah, and I know there's times we're going to be in Thailand for like months and it's going to be super cheap. But then if there's a time where it's like, oh my gosh, we can cruise Antarctica and it's going to cost whatever, we could still possibly do that without having to sacrifice.
Now, I still got to adhere the same assumptions all I did with the change of travel. Now, the fun one of this is that now means you're dying with 216 million instead of 257 million. Like, what happens is because you're young, over 60 years, this is compounding forever.
That's it, and so this thing is showing that we are working like our side businesses right through until we're like 50 or something like that. You said,
yeah, 57, 54. We're gonna change that in a minute. I'm working down like one hypothetical, then we'll do the like you can play this and you get access to the system so you can play with it too later. So all right, now I'm making this up. But we cut it back just for fun numbers. And as long as the system's working with me today, it is. Ooh, beautiful. What ends up happening is your total at the end has come down. I said you're now retiring at 50 and 47. Well, we still got a lot of money left.
I want to know, Jay, what happens if next year, like, give me I don't know, I guess it would be the best case scenario. What if we retired next year?
Yeah, so I think it's going to blow up the system, but we'll see. Because now we've got extra travel in there. Yep, it does. But it actually would work out for you. Watch, I'll show you this in a second. So now I said, okay, we're not working again ever in our life, which, by the way, I don't think is a realistic answer for you two.
No, but I don't want to rely on it. I want to do it because I want to do it. Right.
Now, we still don't run out of money on a straight line. It says you're dying with 1.5 million. Now, here's the thing. If we're going to go down that path, I'm a little worried about your long-term care. We have to figure out like some things. We're getting really close. But what happens is we do what's called Monte Carlo analysis, and we'll run 1,000 simulations. And that's what this chart is here. This is saying over 1,000 simulations, like the world's better than ever to worse than ever. It says chances are you'll probably run out of money, but you could also die with $128 million. Mm-hmm. So we don't know for sure. I prefer to do is we look at this and say, all right, realistically, you two will probably work for 5 more years. Does that sound realistic?
Yep.
We're going to put off Social Security to 70. I'll come back to why. I'm going to fix your investments because we did the international. And this still has in there you spending $30,000 a year on travel. What ends up happening now, by the way, is you got a nice cushion, probably even too much. $8 million you're dying with on a straight line. That's assuming, the market goes as is. And if we even do the what ifs, it's saying most likely you're dying with 23 million after 1,000 simulations. So by the way, what actually happens to this and people in real life, the way we do this is we come up with a number. We set some guardrails. This is how much you can spend, where you got to go. And then each year we kind of fine tune the guardrails. Spend a little less because the market sucked. Spend a little more because the market was great.
Yeah.
You can adjust it, which really for you is going to be the 18 to 30 on travel. You've had 5 years bad in the market. Let's keep the travel down closer to the 18. We've had 5 phenomenal years in the market. Let's bring it up to 50. And the other thing that's going to happen is before you two decide not to work ever again, we need to figure out what you're going to do with your life. Because all too often you get to that and you're like, What's really going to happen, my guess, is we would cut your self-employment money in half somewhere around here. You do a couple travel, little taxes, and that becomes your spending money.
Yeah.
Just fun money.
Yep.
That's kind of what I see happening. I don't see us not working or doing anything for the rest of our lives. That just doesn't seem realistic.
But I also don't want to rely.
Libby doesn't want to have to be on the internet advertising, chasing after a client, like just scrapping to get stuff. She wants those like referrals, just people coming back to her because they like working with her.
So let's do this the way I think it would actually run out. Okay. If I had to guess, you're both going to tinker in some business for a while. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep Andy's at $8,000, but we think that's going to be higher. But let's cut yours in half. That's probably actually what you'll do. Actually, Andy's, I got to bring you up a little because you'll be making more than $8,000 when you're doing it. I just can't feel comfortable. Like 8 seems just way too low. So now, I have to change your retirement age here because it's getting confused. Now what happens is you have $30,000, $40,000. And by the way, this is all of this, including your expenses, your goals, your taxes, are all adjusted by inflation. So what happens is each year we're putting this, $30-something thousand away. We had $8 million before. Now we have $60 million. Which is actually what the path you will probably end up on. We'll have a separate conversation about 5-10 years from now. You're like, how do I spend all this money? How do I give it to charity? Where do I go with it? But what I'm showing you is that concept of, hey, we're going to grind out 5 more years and then retire. You've already hit your goal.
Okay.
Sweet.
I'm not saying put your notice in tomorrow because we still have to figure out healthcare and some other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to it?
To all the stuff we just went over?
I literally just showed you've been doing the right things. Yeah. And you've gotten to your goal-ish. We're getting close.
I think seeing those numbers makes it less scary probably for him too, because he still reels and has all this, thoughts, and seeing it laid out with those scenarios is helpful.
Yeah. And then I did some of so I read through your whole book. And when you talked about the Monte Carlo simulations, and I went and played around with all of that, and I agree with everything that you're saying. And for me, it's really it's exciting to see the actual numbers,
and to know that we're making more than staying here and working other jobs.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, the only thing I can guarantee about the plan is some of these numbers will be off because, who knows what the world's going to look like 30 years from now? We're off. But that in mind, we're directionally, okay, so we go DR, the monthly expenses are, not including travels, $4,000 a month, plus $30,000 a year travel. You're good. Now, the one that messed with Andy's head is every year extra that you work at your current job is money going to your estate, which is not a priority.
Right. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The part-time work you're doing after is for fun work. Just keep yourself engaged, And by the way, what I'll probably end up doing with both of you is however much money you bring on your part-time is how much you can spend on travel.
Yeah.
It's just a way to make it worth your time. We earn more, we get to travel more. We earn less, we travel less. And it works. I've done this trick with a bunch of people. It works. It's just it's a mental trick. Hey, we want to do the Antarctic trip. We want to do this. Let me go book a couple more trips. Let me go do some more taxes. And it doesn't feel like work now because you're hey, all right, we're $1,000 off from that trip. Let's go pick up a couple more. It's just a different way of looking at work. So, Andy, where's your head at? I mean, can we get you to quit the job at the end of the year?
I mean, the more that you sell it and the more you show, and kind of the place because we're sort of in that place right now where we're looking for what the next thing is, and to start living our lives more than just working to right now. I feel like I'm working just to cover rent and bills, and then max out my 401k. So really, I'm working all year long in order to contribute $23,000 to my 401k plus, the match or whatever.
And by the way, the secret of this is the stuff you do on your self-employment. We put that in Roth 401k. We're effectively doing a Roth conversion of your extra money over time. It works out great. And you actually end up, when I get done with this plan, you end up with 100% of that money's tax-free. Which means that's really your money. It's not like, I owe the government some.
And then I think we had there were some concerns that I know you had told me a while back, hey, make a list of some concerns to knock out sort of thing. And you've brought up them in this meeting, which is the long-term care insurance, just general health insurance. I know, I think in you had talked about that being really, a lot of money, expensive. I don't remember the exact dollar amount you put on it, but I haven't really looked that much into what the health insurance would cost, especially living international. And
we did put an estimate, though.
We did have an estimate
based on what we've found so far.
And we're going to tweak this. So where we're going is when we do the checkup, we're kind of here's your current state. And then it's now, given that, what do we need to do to get you to your goal? And it's funny, Andy, you said, I'm trying to sell you on living your best life and goals. I mean, let's just kind of check that.
No, yeah, you're not. Yeah, you're just presenting the facts.
But what's happening is it's you can go live your best life. We just need to now spend the next couple of meetings. Hey, let's work on crossing T's, dotting I's.
Mm.
The life you're going to live is not extravagant. Let's call it that. So if I wanted to do back of the napkin math, you got about $1.2 million net worth. It's a little higher than that once we get everything done, but you got about $60,000 a year expenses. That's a 5% withdrawal rate. Fire World uses that 4% safe withdrawal rate. We could argue all day long on 4% or 5%. As long as you're okay, hey, if the market does bad, we might have to travel less that year or do a little more part-time work. That's really what we're asking.
And I think we both agreed on that. And that was a big part of our place in the Dominican Republic, being paid for and all of that stuff done before we made any type of move. We always have that fallback. I feel like that's our safety net of if stuff went really bad, we can go there and we have a low cost of living and paid for place, and our expenses
on the beach and we're still happy.
Go way down.
What we're going to end up doing is we're going to set up a set of guardrails that don't quote me on it. Hey, when your net worth gets below $1 million, you cut back to X. When it gets over 2 million, you expand to Y type deal. Something like that is where we'll end up. I don't know the exact numbers. We'll work through figuring that out for you.
None of this accounts for that we might potentially rent out our Dominican place when we're not living there too.
Yeah, it's additional.
So I'm lumping all your self-employment, rental, whatever into $30,000, $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
If it's a good travel year, it'd be more than that. If it's a good tax year, it might be more than that. You might look at it and go, well, Andy could do extra tax returns because we're not traveling anywhere in that springtime frame, and then we can go to Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But you don't have to work. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So this is where we start talking about working with A clients, the ones you absolutely want to work with, and the ones you don't want to work with, for C clients, you just don't return their phone call.
Yeah.
I hate to say it that way, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
You're a giant pain in my ass. I'm not working with you.
Yeah.
Libby, how you feeling? I know you got a cold, but how you feeling overall?
No, that's exciting to hear. I think we had all those what ifs after the last meeting, and it's hard when we don't have I wish this was weekly, not monthly, because there's so much stuff to go over. But since then, we've had all these what ifs, and we were doubting ourselves, and then now seeing you actually show us the numbers, it's well, that's ridiculous that we're going to die with that much money. So yeah, let's do it.
Andy, I'm glad I gave you the homework to read the book. That gave you something to keep you busy. I'm going to keep giving you more as we go along. What's happening is you've hit the goal. And now it's well, what's the next 40 years of my life look like? That's what we're talking about. By the way, the actual data says you won't travel as much as you think you do when you're older. I've got this built in now. I forget how many gajillions of dollars you're spending at the end of your life. Hold on. it says you're spending $140,000 a year in travel when you're 90s. You're not going to. Like, that's built in there. That's the type of things that go
hard the first few years. And then as we get older, kind of hopefully if we enjoy the DR place, we'll stay there. And then I want to find a second place that we can go when we're not in the DR. Just kind of have those two places that we bounce between.
Yep. It's called the retirement smile. You spend more money at the beginning, then you spend less, then you spend more money at the end because of healthcare. That is what most everybody follows. You two are not weird on that. That being said, what does your life look like when you're semi-retired at 39? Like, that becomes an interesting discussion.
Do you have any questions?
No.
All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to send you it'll come out on Monday. So checkup, you get that tax thing. You'll get access to the right capital system. You can go and play a little bit. Andy, go play all you want. What it will do is it's not going to allow you to save any changes because then I'll be confused. So it's like a playground. You play with it. And then when you leave, it'll restart again. And then we've got those couple investment moves we're going to make. And then, Libby, I'm also going to send you a list of questions to ask your parents.
Oh, gosh, yeah. That's very difficult. They're a mess, Jay. They need this with you.
Well, we may do that. So we do a checkup for parents. Okay? We don't regularly take on parents as clients, but we do this financial checkup just like what we just did for you because their financial might have more impact than any other decision we got going on in here for you. So we will figure that out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a list of questions. And what you do is you say, Dr. J says, I got to ask you these questions. Just blame me.
Yeah.
And then we'll be able to dig in and go, okay, this is what we need to work on. And we're,
The problem is I'm going to question because what my mom says is going to be different than what my dad says. So I have to ask both. They're not on the same page, which is where it's a mess.
Yep. That's why we may have to do a session, you, me, and them. Just to work through it. I get to be the bad guy in a lot of these things. It's just
yeah. Well, and they're going to say, you don't have to worry about us. And it's well, I am, because when you're in a shithole, I'm going to worry about you.
Well, I even just want to start with what's your will? What's your power of attorney? Where's the paperwork? What are your...
I've tried that. Yep. We haven't got anywhere.
I regularly did. I did one of these just a couple weeks ago. And they're like, Mom's going to come to the meeting. I'm like, all right. And I just asked Mom all the questions that, that you can't ask.
Yeah.
And walk through all of it. And it's one of those things people are like, oh, you don't have to worry about it. No, I am, Mom. Seriously. Or you tell me I'm not going to worry about it. We're going to agree in blood that I don't have to worry about you in the future. And when you're in a terrible home, you got to be comfortable with it. And I've had some people where that's the boundary. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's where it's at. That's okay if that's where we get to. It's kind of either let me in or I'm going to not worry about it. I can't be in the middle. We'll help you through that. And then, Andy, what that'll mean is probably sometime either next meeting or the one after, we will go back to the what if list and test every single corner of this until you feel 1,000% comfortable.
Okay.
By the way, we know it's all projection, so it's not perfect, but you got to feel comfortable enough that let's pull the plug and head towards this direction. The other one I want you to think about, Andy, is there anything in your job at certain times? So whether it's 401k vesting or bonus or other things, which would impact when you should quit. Okay. So as I can see your brain going I'm letting that sit for a bit. Oh, that's right. My next 401k vest is in April. Well, then we're not going to leave until, the day after that. Or I get a bonus or other things like that. Right now I have it artificially at the end of the year, but I had somebody, we did this and we had figured out if they left at the end of the year or versus March, it was $70,000 they'd leave on the table because of bonus and 401k. I'm like, no, you're working through March. I'm just telling you, for 3 months, you're going to suck it up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then part of our timeline is going to be the Dominican Republic place. We had said to be ready at the end of this year. I don't know, but we're
still waiting to hear.
We're still waiting on a firm date. It's island time.
If it's not December, it'll be Q1 of 2025.
Yeah.
Yep. Or what we do is we start the year off traveling instead of starting it off at DR.
Yeah.
Pack your stuff up, put it in a pod, and have it shipped. It's going to be $1 gajillion to ship from Hawaii to the DR, but
yeah, we haven't considered that. Well, I think we would sell a lot of our things.
Yeah,
pretty much everything except for like the sentimental stuff and
my shells.
What could fit in suitcases and that kind of stuff would go. But
we're going to spend $10,000 to ship shells.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I've done this with folks, and I'm like, so by pound, you can actually figure out what it costs to ship something. And it's like, the couch you're on is going to cost you $1,000 to ship. I'll buy a new couch. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we moved 1,200 miles, and I'm like, nope. Whatever does, we got one pod, and whatever did not fit in the pod, we got rid of. So we had a couch we wanted, but it didn't fit. Like, we are literally like, they're picking up the pod in the next 20 minutes. I'm like, I put a message on Facebook, like, free, come take it. like we got to a point where like some of the dishes didn't make it. Some, like, hey, this is it. Whatever fixing this container. We'll get there.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating or review. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Please let us know your thoughts wherever comments are available, or email us at media@childfreewealth.com. To stay up to date, find and follow Childfree Wealth on social media. If you're interested in working with us, learn more by visiting our website, childfreewealth.com. We'll see you next time.